Chapter 114. Gao Xianzhi's debut. In the Zhenan Hall, Gu Hai, Long Shenwu, Sima Changkong, and all the civil and military officials were all staring at the sand deduction stage. Gao Xianzhi and Baili warrior stood aside with their eyes closed. Their minds had already entered the battlefield, and each of them led 100,000 troops and began to range their troops at the two ends of the battlefield. This was a mountainous and hilly area. Everything about the terrain was extremely unfamiliar. The two commanders needed to explore the terrain and spy on the enemy's army, and for a while they quickly set up. Only, from the projection, the people above were very swift in general, as if Gu Hai had used the fast-forward button to watch a film on Earth in the past. Gu Hai looked puzzled. "Your Majesty, this sand deduction stage is a special treasure. The consciousness enters it. It will be 100 times faster. So in the internal battlefield for 100 days, but in the outside world it is a day's time. And the characters, troops, and terrain on it can be set in advance," Mu Chunfeng introduced in a small voice. "A sand field deduction stage. That's a good thing to use to exercise the generals in the army. Where can I get it for sale?" Gu Hai's eyes lit up. This is indeed used to exercise the generals. However, it has been controlled by the major powers. So, there's no way to sell it." Mu Chunfeng smiled bitterly. Gu Hai nodded. "And this Baili War is not an easy person. Just now he acted rashly. In fact, this person's heart is as fine as dust. Moreover, he will mobilize people's emotions and provoke the other party, so that the other party will be confused, so that he can take advantage of the opportunity," Mu Chunfeng whispered. "No harm done. Gao Xianzhi's ability to lead an army is not much worse than mine." Gu Hai smiled faintly. Yes," Mu Chunfeng nodded. Long Shenwu looked at the projection, and then at Sima Changkong. Sima Changkong faintly burst into a bitter smile, and did not say anything. The great hall was silent. Only the sound of Gu Chen's constant eating hula remained. This Gao Xianzhi, he's not going to lead the troops, is he? Sending out so many sentries. General Baili is really experienced in 100 battles. This troop formation, in the middle of the road. This is the Yongju Square formation, which was famous in the past in the Great Jin. After all, from the secular world, cultivators are not comparable to ordinary mortals. Mortals can be trapped by large rivers and mountains, but cultivators are like walking on the ground. Archers. Gao Xianzhi cultivated so many archers. Is it useful? You haven't led an army of cultivators, and you still want to fight against General Baili. It's really ridiculous." There was a burst of whispers from the civil and military officials in the Great Hall, one to the other, not looking favorably on Gao Xianzhi, looking at the projection that was constantly fast-forwarding, but he revealed a smile. "Your Majesty, what kind of formation did Gao Xianzhi set up? It's disorganized. Also, so many archers. Are they useful?" "Archers can only be beneficial for a short time when the two armies are in contact, but the cultivator army is very fast, and soon the two armies will meet, so the bows and arrows will be useless. Cultivating archers is a waste of their other talents, and a frontal clash is definitely not as good as a 100-mile battle." Mu Chunfeng worried. "No need to worry." Gu Hai shook his head and laughed, revealing a smile of recognition at Gao Xianzhi's arrangements. Archers, who said that archers could only briefly blossom in the battlefield. This arrangement of Gao Xianzhi's had been used by Gu Hai in the past, when he was young, and it was unimaginable that Gao Xianzhi had used it here. This is guerrilla warfare. Archers, not for frontal conflict, completely only for sneak attacks, to shoot a shot for a place. No, shoot an arrow for a place. Moreover, Gao Xianzhi sent out a large number of sentries just to get the most accurate terrain. It's starting. The short spying is over. The two armies are starting to make contact. What is this Gao Xianzhi fighting? Where's his army formation? How come it's a plate of scattered sand? How can a scattered army still want to fight General Bailey? It really can't. Where is it a match for General Bailey? Here. A crowd of civil and military officials were in the midst of shocked discussions. Not far away, Sima Changkong was squinting his eyes at the center of the battlefield. Sima Changkong was slightly stunned. What's wrong, Lord Sima? An official to the side curiously said. Gao Xianzhi's army, although it's scattered, but it seems to be in a regular pattern. It's not chaotic at all. Are they trying to surround General Bailey? Sima Changkong said suspiciously. Long Shenwu also narrowed his eyes and stared. The two armies are engaged. Shooting arrows. Gao Xianzhi's archers shot arrows first, but Gao Xianzhi's batch of archers aren't many, are they? Only 100 people. And they want to shake 100,000 troops. Shameless Gao Xianzhi. He shot and ran away. Can't you have some face? This is desertion on the battlefield. Hey, 100 archers over there have started too. They're running away again. Do all these archers run away after a fight? They're back again. Shit. How shameless. When General Bailey's soldiers were chasing you, you fled. And when General Bailey collected his troops, you circled back. Isn't this fucked up? This group of 100-man squads, specializing in harassment. The officials were counting down Gao Xianzhi's shamelessness. However, Long Shenwu frowned and suddenly looked at Gu Heidao. Mr. Gu, this subordinate of yours, what great confidence, using only 50,000 troops. Many ministers were then surprised. Indeed, Gao Xianzhi's army, only 50,000 troops for guerrilla warfare, and another 50,000 troops, although scattered in all directions, had never moved. Gao Xianzhi leads the army. I never interfere. Gu Hai smiled faintly. The crowd of officials frowned at Gu Hai. You don't intervene, but your Gao Xianzhi leading the troops is too shameless. Gu Hai looked at the battlefield projection, but revealed a hint of satisfaction. Gao Xianzhi did a very good job. The enemy advances and I retreat. The enemy is stationed and I disturb. The enemy is tired and I fight. The enemy retreats and I advance. The tactical essence of guerrilla warfare was used by Gao Xianzhi to the fullest. Although in the eyes of some people, this is a completely shameless and rogue tactic, but the battlefield is no small matter. And in a battle of life and death, how can it be shameless? Gao Xianzhi used it very well. For a while, Bailey War's army was pitched straight into a corner. The guerrilla squads that had just split up to deal with the four directions turned around and suffered a big loss. They didn't dare to disperse easily, however. The guerrilla squads were relentless, pestering you, circling around and tiring you out. This is the benefit of a 100-man squad. Although there are only 100 men, the destructive power caused is no worse than 1,000. 1 hour later, many of the generals of the 100-mile war, many of them are already tired and about to collapse. But the guerrillas are very numerous, constantly rotating, and had a very good grasp of the terrain. In the blink of an eye, they let the Bailey warfare armies suffer heavy deaths and injuries. Only as many as 80,000 remained. After another hour, Bailey War only had 50,000 troops left. At this moment, Bailey War's army had a tendency to blow up the camp. The army was disorganized. Half an hour later, Bailey War only had 10,000 troops left. This 10,000 troops actually has 8,000 collapsed and surrendered. There are still 2,000 troops left. Finally, by the army of Gao Xianzhi, forced to die in a valley. 10,000 arrows were fired, and the whole army was wiped out. Boom! The projection trembled violently, and both of them instantly returned to consciousness. Bailey War was sweating profusely, looking at Gao Xianzhi in horror. Understood, Gao Xianzhi smiled faintly, calm and collected. It doesn't count. What just happened doesn't count. "You kid is playing a rascal, again. Start over again." Bailey War immediately shouted angrily. "Enough, Bailey War. Lose is lose," Divine Martial King said in a deep voice. "But, Marshal, I was not expecting Gao Xianzhi to be so rogue," Bailey Battle shouted at once. Gao Xianzhi only used 50,000 troops, with less than 3,000 dead and wounded. "And your army of 100,000, all of them were wiped out. Isn't it humiliating enough?" King Shenwu said coldly. The Divine Martial King was also very uncomfortable in his heart at the moment. Although the 6th Legion's usual battle results were not good, but the Divine Martial King was still reluctantly accepting the 100-mile battle ability. But goods are better than goods. Gao Xianzhi used less than 3,000 casualties, no, less than 1,000 deaths, to exterminate Bailey War's 100,000 strong army. This ability to lead an army is more than just a notch worse. Yes, Bailey War was slightly bitter. Gao Xianzhi slowly walked back to his seat. "Your Majesty, I have let your Majesty down. In the sand deduction, I made 3 mistakes." In the middle of the hall, a group of civil and military officials looked at Gao Xianzhi. "You did it on purpose, didn't you? You did it on purpose, didn't you? Such a great victory, and you're telling me that you made 3 mistakes? Huh, 3 mistakes, and you've abused Bailey War like that. What would you do if you didn't make mistakes?" Bailey War even looked at Gao Xianzhi with a grudging gaze. "No matter, it's your first time leading a cultivator army. It's inevitable that you'll make mistakes. It'll be fine when you have a thorough grasp of the habits of cultivator armies in the future." Gu Hai laughed. Bailey War, a group of officials. First time leading a cultivator army. Are you kidding me, Marshal? I don't know if the Gao Xianzhi that I recommended can fit into the Marshal's eyes. Gu Hai smiled slightly. I, however, did not expect that under Mr. Gu, there is actually someone who is so good at fighting. Gao Xianzhi, good, not bad. He can be the 6th Army commander. The Divine Martial King nodded. Gao Xianzhi's tactics could not only defeat Bailey War and make Bailey War depressed. The Divine Martial King looked at Gao Xianzhi with a rush of eyes. The battle just now was indeed wonderful. Even in the middle of his own camp, it is still a general's talent, and there are not many people in the camp who lead the army to take such an effect. If this person could be taken under his command, it would also be good. Why don't you thank the Marshal? Gu Hai looked towards Gao Xianzhi. Many thanks, Marshal, Gao Xianzhi said with a slight salute. The Divine Martial King smiled faintly and was about to bestow his grace when a capricious shout came from outside the Great Hall. "No, the 6th Legion. I want it." Long Wan Yu's voice came from far away. The crowd frowned slightly and looked outside the Great Hall. However, they saw Long Wan Yu with several black-robed men instantly jumping into the Grand Hall, with Master Liu Nian standing behind him. "Greetings to the Grand Marshal." The crowd of black-robed men and the flowing Yu's Grand Master immediately said respectfully. Only Long Wan Yu had a face of indignation. Turning her head, Long Wan Yu glanced hatefully at Gu Hai, clearly still unable to let go of the scene of being teased by Gu Hai not long ago. At this moment, seeing that Gu Hai was about to take control of the 6th Legion, she immediately wanted to block it. Gao Xianzhi was Gu Hai's person. If Gao Xianzhi grasped the 6th Legion, it was Gu Hai grasping it. So how could Long Wan Yu let Gu Hai have a good time? As long as it could make things better for Gu Hai, it would all be stirred up.